And so Dot has started recording this session, and we will do until we break out for questions. During this web cafe series, we are focusing on hidden harms, particularly in the West Midlands. We are pleased to be partnering with organisations, professionals and survivors based in the West Midlands and look at harmful practices affecting communities in the area. And we are also very grateful to be able to share learnings around support, around best practice and around prevention. And just to say that we are also very grateful to the PCC in West Midlands for funding this particular series. Today we have an expert who will be talking to us about honour-based abuse in Birmingham specifically, and our guest is Shamida. Welcome, Shamida.
Thank you.
And Shamida is an experienced domestic abuse and safeguarding professional based in Birmingham. Shamida has expertise and knowledge running a service within a mosque. Shamida has worked extensively with Muslim women and families affected by domestic violence, forced marriage, mental health challenges and honour-based abuse by providing frontline support, risk assessments and multi-agency partnerships. So, Shamida, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I am just going to kick off with kind of a first question. It seems basic, but I think it's really important for us to understand the context. What can you tell us about what is honour-based abuse and how does it manifest?
Yeah. So firstly, good afternoon, everybody. I just want to say a big thank you to Kate and Dot for inviting me today. I just want to let you all know I'm not a public speaker, so do bear with me. But yeah, I'm more than happy to answer any of the questions that you all have. So yeah, starting off with the first one. From my experience based in Birmingham and working with the Muslim community, with honour-based abuse, it's all about power and control. Now it's about being punished and controlled for bringing shame to the family. Now it can show up in various different ways. It can be emotional and psychological abuse, restrictions on movements, education, friendships, who they can speak to, who they can't speak to, forced marriage, constant monitoring by family members, who they're going to, who they're visiting, what time they're going to appointments, when they're going to be coming back, not allowing them to have access to a mobile phone, also physical abuse, and things that I've also experienced supporting women is threats to kill. So there has been cases where women have experienced this, honour-based abuse by having threats to kill due to them going against the family decisions and what they want for them. And one big thing that I did want to also include is that it's more than one family member. So from my experience, I've noticed it's not just one family member that's showing the abuse, and it's more than one family member, whether it's in the partner, whether it's siblings. That's what I have experienced.
Oh, thank you. That was a very good explanation. And can you give us some examples that occurred, particularly in the area you work?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. So what I've experienced is women being forced and pressured into marriage, being controlled in the name of family honour. And a lot of the women, they've been told that this abuse is normal and that the fact that it's religious. So a lot of the women, they have been told that this is part of the religion and it's absolutely fine, it's absolutely normal. They've been isolated because they can't access services or they can't communicate confidently. And a lot of the abuse simply continues because women don't know what their options are. They don't know what's available in the area. And one, I would say, barrier that I noticed for a lot of the women was the language barrier. It was something that came up time and time again, it being a barrier and it being an issue, because when many women that I have supported, English is not their first language. And because they are new to the country, they don't know who to talk to. They don't know what support exists. They don't know how to explain basically what's happening to them. So these are some of the things I have witnessed.
And obviously, you were based in a very specific setting because it was a domestic abuse service in a mosque. But in generally, particularly in the West Midlands or Birmingham, are you aware of numbers or how prevalent honour-based
Yeah.
abuse?
So from my experience and from the research that I have undertaken, is it is considered, the West Midlands is considered as a high prevalence area for honour-based abuse. And as of June 2025, it was reported that an incident of violence against women or girls was reported actually every 30 seconds across the region. So it does show us that it is something that is occurring, whether it's hidden, but it is showing that it is occurring, especially if it's after every 30 seconds. And from my experience, it's mainly women and girls. And again, from my experience, especially those who are migrants or newly arrived to the country, or the fact that they have limited English. And again, these women are particularly vulnerable. Why? Because they depend on family for things like housing, immigration support, and also for translation.
Thank you. And do you know or have any idea, based on experience, which communities are primarily affected?
Well, the women that were coming to access the service that I was supporting, it was predominantly from the Pakistani community.
Oh,
Yeah, from the Pakistani community. Yeah.
and do you think that is because of where the service was set up and where the area that was operating as well?
Yes, I do believe that that is one of the factors. However, again, it varies. So, for example, after when I would prepare my sort of statistics, I would see that it was definitely the Pakistani community. I mean, we had other communities as well accessing, but from my experience, it was the Pakistani community, and like you said, because of the location as well.
And do you think honor-based abuse is still hidden or underreported?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do believe, again, the point that I already touched on is that language barrier, it definitely plays a huge part. And again, it's because the women that don't know how to describe the abuse that they're going through, they don't know what services exist. They fear the authorities because of immigration or misunderstanding. And again, the point that I already mentioned before is they are told to stay silent for the sake of family honor. And the other thing is that some of them don't realize that what they are experiencing is abuse because they believe that it's normal behavior. It's something that happens in a particular community. It's something that you just have to accept. It's something that you have to live with.
And in terms of, the other side, that is the institutional and the response from organizations, do you think, particularly in the setting that you worked in Birmingham or West Midlands, particularly local authorities and police forces have a good understanding of what honor-based abuse is? Is it easy to recognize for them, or do you think there are still some gaps in
Yes,
the?
I do definitely feel like there are gaps. Yes, definitely, and that goes on to the bit about the challenges for Muslim women uh, coming forward. So, from my experience, one of the biggest challenges I've seen and witnessed myself is the confusion between culture and religion. This is something that came up quite a lot. So, with the women, many of them were told that what you're experiencing, this is Islam, this is the religion, this is something that you have to accept, and things like this is what a good woman should tolerate. Things like but from that experience, and then when they've come to the service and they've accessing the service, they actually realize that this is not Islam. And the fact that obviously when they were engaging with myself, I was educating them, and I was explaining to them, what are the rights in Islam. And from that point, it was definitely a turning point for them. And they realized that, Islam doesn't support oppression, and actually it speaks clearly against abuse. And again, it's about Islam giving women the dignity and the choice and the protection. And this knowledge in itself it was incredibly empowering for the women. And just the fact that they had access to that, it allowed for them to, it was like a turning point for them.
And obviously, you mentioned some of the barriers around immigration that we do know is a huge barrier, dependence and reliance on families and communities. Obviously, ideas about culture and religion. Do you think is there any other specific challenges for Muslim victims or Muslim families coming forward apart from the ones we already discussed? Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. So I would say things like lack of funding. So if services were funded, it would allow for example, training to take place on things like honor-based abuse, and also things like limited access to professional support services. And the thing is, for example, the mosque, they need proper funding so that they can bring in the right professionals and just things like running awareness sessions and things like this in order for these are some of the challenges what I believe are taking place for the mosques supporting the victims. Yeah.
And obviously, you mentioned funding, which I think is a common struggle for a lot of services. But is there any other challenges that you think mosques providing domestic abuse support for victims face? For example, I'm thinking about divorce, for example, the views on divorce, or any other challenges that you may consider because it's such a specific setting.
Yeah. So, do you mean in terms of the mosques and the challenges they face in terms of victims coming, clients coming forward, or do you mean, yeah? I mean, to be honest with you, in terms of the challenges are again the community and how that would have an effect on the victims. So, for example, a lot of the women when they came to the service, they had this perception that everybody would find out what's going on in their life because for example, mosques, for example, it's community run, so they were aware that their family members, for example, or their friends or the community were attending that mosque, so they already had this misconception that everybody's going to find out what's going on. But again, because they had that support, because we had that support service in place, we were able to support the women to understand that actually this is not going to be taking place and giving them that knowledge that we take safeguarding very seriously. So things like the mosques having these professionals coming in, telling them, the staff, for example, training staff on safeguarding, this will allow these challenges and these misconceptions to be removed from the community so more people come forward that actually it's a safe space, not a space where all your news is going to go everywhere, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Was there any particular challenge for you as a professional, for example, belonging to the community? And I know that obviously fear of gossiping or having your information leaked, as you mentioned, is always present, but also because it's having to balance, isn't it, that you are a member of the community working in a professional setting.
Yes.
In a very specific context, yeah.
No, I understand. I mean, we did have a few incidents where, for example, the perpetrators would come to the mosque looking for who is this worker that's supporting my wife, or who is this worker that's supporting my mum. So sometimes there was that little bit of fear for myself in terms of, well, people know what my name is, so is that going to affect me? But because of my passion to support victims of domestic abuse, that didn't really sort of affect me, if that makes sense. There was a challenge there, however, because of my passion to want to support these women, it's something that I just continued regardless of any challenges that come my way.
Thank you. And because you touched obviously that mosque is about community, and we also know that in many communities where with higher prevalence of honor-based abuse, we do know that they very focus on the collective rather than on the individual. So what do you think that communities' responses are when victims comes forward? What was your experience?
Now, you see, in terms of this, I would say we had like a mixed response from the community. So some people, I would say, were very supportive. Actually, we would have, for example, parents, we'd have siblings, we'd have extended family members that would actually bring victims directly to the mosque when they were aware that such a service is running. So I would say that we had a lot of people that were supportive. But again, on the other hand, for some victims, it was about you have to keep the matter private. You can't go anywhere. And women also, from my experience, they were told that you just need to be patient. It's something that's going to end. It's not something that, you're going to have to worry about. And what about the honor? What about the family? What are the family going to say? And also the reputation was prioritized over safety.
Yeah.
So it was definitely, I would say, a mixed response. But a lot of the time, women, they feel unheard and they feel alone, especially when they're already struggling with language and confidence or confidence. But like I said, we had like a mixed response. We had some people that were very supportive and others not so supportive because, again, of the honor and, the shame.
I know it happens a lot, because I did frontline myself, and I did have some requests to go and provide some kind of mediation with the family, because obviously views on divorce, that is like the last resource that you should be using. Did that happen in the practice as well, and how did you handle those cases?
So in terms of supporting families, that's not something that we would do. So what we would do is, for my service, we would just specifically support the victim of domestic abuse. In terms of any extended family members, so for example, some women would come and say, "Look, I don't want to go for a divorce. I don't want to, I want to still stay in the marriage. However, I just need support with my family," for example. So because we had religious leaders within the mosque, a lot of the time the women were able to then access the religious leaders and to have that discussion, open discussion with family members, ensuring obviously safeguarding the safety and all of that was put into place. And then they were able to do that. But in terms of myself, I didn't support anybody other than the victim themselves.
Okay, so it would be more the imam to have that conversation.
That's right, the imams, yes, the religious leaders, yeah. And again, as a professional, I would always have to sort of inform the victim to, about safeguarding and their own safety as well. Because, for example, we would have cases where, for example, the husband would just turn up at the mosque and demand to know where his wife was. So again, we'd have to ensure that the safety of the imams as well, the religious leaders, if any, and also for the woman herself, not to put herself in danger or risk. So yeah, we'd have to assess each case. Yeah.
Yes, obviously, and we all know how imams are usually respected. So, do you think that layer of respect does work? I'm assuming it does work for some families, may not work for.
Definitely.
But what's your experience here?
Oh yeah, in terms of that, definitely, I definitely agree with that, Vanya. And something that I was very passionate about was educating people about domestic abuse, and this includes religious leaders, because like you said, they're sort of like a public figure. So a lot of people, whether it's the victims, whether it's family members, whether it's community members, when they have something that they want to, talk about in terms of the religion or get rulings on certain things, they would go to the imams, for example. So without them having knowledge about domestic abuse and the impact that it's having on the women, how then would they be able to educate, the people that come forward to them? So I myself would deliver training on domestic abuse and the different types of abuse to educate the religious leaders and other people. So when a victim is coming forward, they know exactly how to support the woman and their family members.
So that's very interesting. Because that was going to be one of my questions, do you think that we need to invest more in having a domestic abuse standpoint from an interfaith perspective, so all religious leaders coming together, working together to end abuse against women and girls, and also, do you think that the faith networks that exist are do recognize the full extent of the abuse or have the training and the skills to recognize it? Because obviously you trained professionals, how you trained faith leaders, how did it change something? You think it changed their understanding?
Definitely, because it's all about having empathy as well, and and for them to also be able to empower the women to be able to make an informed decision about what they want to do in terms of their situation. So I think it's very, very important we have things like this in place where we are educating and raising awareness about domestic abuse, about honor-based abuse. And I find also other things like providing support in multiple languages, because again, as I mentioned, language was a big, big barrier. And because obviously I speak an additional language other than English, it was beneficial for the women, because then I was able to communicate with them in in their chosen language, Punjabi, for example. So I think if we can have support like that in multiple languages and improving awareness of services, again for newly arrived women, because they don't know what's available. I had women who have just come into the country and they've only been in the country for a month, and they just happened to browse on somebody told them that, oh, there's a mosque, go there, so definitely.
That was going to be my last question, is what can we do better to support of honor-based abuse in West Midlands? And I think you did talk about language. That is ongoing conversation in the sector as well, because and one thing I also used to find quite hard for someone newly arrived to the country is how difficult the support system in the UK is to navigate, because if you need legal assistance, you need to go to one place. Housing, you need to go to another place. If you have mental health, that's another worker. If you have child protection issues, that's another worker. If you have domestic abuse, that's another worker. And for someone that is new to the country, is struggling with abuse, having suddenly 5 or 6 people to manage their support is incredibly hard. Did you experience that as well?
Yeah. And in terms of touching on, adding on to that as well, is just educating communities as well on the difference between culture and religion. Because again, I found that a lot of people didn't understand, especially with the victims. I'm talking from the victim perspective. When they were coming, for example, to the mosque, they just, from their understanding, it was, this is what the religion is, this is what the religion tells us. But only until they've been educated about the difference between the culture and Islam, for example, it was only then that they were able to realize that actually this is not right. This is actually abuse. It's not the religion. So I think even the point that I touched on as well about funding the mosques as well, to be able to host awareness sessions with professionals, because again, you do need funding to be able to, run such projects and to get other professionals in.
Do you think we should work more on prevention to avoid people becoming victims in the first place?
Exactly, 100%. And this is how we're going to be able to prevent it, by holding such things where we're educating the community, we're having awareness sessions, and ultimately just making spaces for women where they do feel safe, they're being believed, and they're not being judged.
Oh. Well, thank you so much, Shamida. I don't know if you want to add something else before we open the floor.
Yeah, I think one thing, sorry, I wanted to add was as well that a lot of the women, they found that when they were coming to the mosque, for example, straight away they felt like they were at home, they were in a safe space, because from their experience, when they have been to other organizations, they've felt that they've not been understood. They've not really been, for example, me being a Muslim woman, for example, there's certain things that they can relate to with myself, and I could possibly understand being a Muslim woman myself. So they found that they were able to engage with me a lot more better than other services that they went out to access. So that's just something that I wanted to, that's why I said it's really important to educate and raise that awareness, so that victims are supported in the best possible way. And ultimately, we just want to empower the women. We want to empower the women to be able to live, a life like, a life where they feel safe, they feel protected, and not feeling judged.
Oh, thank you, Shamida. And I do hope that we get to that aim.
Definitely.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you, Anya.
We're going to now stop recording.